Alright troops, welcome to episode 19 of the Tired Hack podcast. I'm your man Chris Scullion, coming to your ears via iTunes, tiredoldhack.com, and for the first time youtube.com. On my YouTube channel I've decided to start putting the podcasts up there with some just kind of random gameplay footage of some of the games I've been playing recently. Basically when I'm playing games for review, I'm almost always running it through a grabber, capturing footage of what I'm playing just in case I need to get screenshots later on or make some videos or whatever. So yeah, I've got all this kind of spare footage lying about, so I figured why not put it in the background while I kind of putting my podcasts over it so that people can kind of see some footage. If YouTube is where you more usually listen to podcasts and stuff, then that's now a new avenue. So for today's episode, if you're watching this on YouTube, what you will be seeing is footage from NBA 2K18, first the Xbox One version, and then later on the Nintendo Switch version. Both versions will be in this video, so you can kind of compare and contrast them and see how the Switch version holds up. It's a kind of apt game to be doing because later on in the podcast I'm going to be discussing the review situation. In the last podcast a couple of weeks ago I spoke about my review of Metroid Samus Returns, how I gave it a 10 for Nintendo Life, and how it was a kind of interesting situation whenever you do a review like that because you don't know what the reaction is going to be when you're writing the review. You don't know what everyone else is going to give it, and it just kind of ended up working out okay that the majority of people agreed with me that it was a really good game, but also, like I also mentioned, the kind of ways some people react in a kind of negative way to reviews, and how it's a bit unnecessary. So as luck would have it, a week after the Metroid Samus Returns review, I then reviewed NBA 2K18 for Nintendo Switch on Nintendo Life, and it brought with it its whole a whole new level, a whole new series of annoyances and problems. So I'm going to be discussing that and the ridiculous Da Vinci Code style conspiracies that have been surrounding that review next. So yeah, I'll get to that later on, but for now let's have a look at some of the kind of gaming news doing the rounds just a wee bit before I go on to that. Super Mario Run, the old mobile Mario game on Android and iOS, which is I was going to say an endless runner, but it isn't endless. It very much has an end. It's got numerous stages that have ends to them. It's getting an update, a long anticipated update, which is adding a new world called World Star, which adds like 9 new stages, apparently with new enemies and mechanics and stuff, so that's quite good. It's adding a new mode called Remix 10, which apparently will chop and change, basically take bits from each level and introduce them at random, because each stage in Super Mario Run is kind of split into numerous sections, so it'll probably be taking sections from each of those and putting them all together, so that's quite good. And finally, Daisy as a playable character. I really don't like Daisy much, but that's for another podcast. I'm just not into the whole yeehaw type of things, but Daisy has her fans. So the Daisy fan base will be happy with that. I have no doubts. So yeah, that's Super Mario Run. If you don't have it yet, it sounds like this is a good time to buy it, especially because between 29th of September and the 10th of October, it's going to be half price to buy the full game. So instead of when Mario Run came out, the payment mechanics for it was, instead of microtransactions, it's a single transaction. So you get the first world or so for free, and if you like it, brilliant, you pony up $10 or whatever the equivalent it was in pounds, and that was it. One-off payment, you got the game, unlocked all the worlds, unlocked everything. That was it. So during that period, 20th of September till the 10th of October, it's going to be $5 instead, or whatever the equivalent is in pounds, so £3 or £4. If you don't have it yet, that's the perfect time to get it. I'm also going to be announcing a thing soon. I've got numerous copies of my Super Mario Run handbook that I wrote a while back that kind of came out early at the start of this year. People have been asking me to, I say people as if it's a common thing, a number of people have been asking me about signed copies and stuff like that. I'm going to be announcing, I've got like 7 or 8 copies here with me. I'm going to be announcing a thing on how I'm going to be selling some of those soon. to raise money for charity. So keep an eye on my Twitter and stuff like that, and maybe on tyrolhack.com, and I'll give you the details and how that's going to happen. But yeah, it's obviously not everyone gives a shit about me signing books, but there have been a couple of people asking about it, so this is for them mainly, so don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. But yeah, so there you go. Keeping on Nintendo, Shinji Mikami, the Mr. Resident Evil, essentially, he says that he would like to bring the Evil Within 2 to Switch. Also, the Evil Within 2 is coming out next month, 13th of October, I believe, Friday the 13th, which is apt. And yeah, he says he wants to bring it to the Switch. He was interviewed by GameSpot, and he said, and I quote, "I think a Switch version would be interesting. I'd like to try it if I had the chance." Although, to be fair, he did also add that he doesn't have a Switch yet because he can't find one. Because if you think it's hard to find a Switch here, and in the US it's even harder in Japan, where by all accounts people are queuing up in Japan just for raffle tickets to try and buy one. That's how limited the stock is there. So, and I saw Reggie Fils-Aimé was speaking recently about how, contrary to popular belief, the whole kind of conspiracy theory that Nintendo's holding back stock, that in reality Nintendo released more stock than was expected, because according to him, by all accounts, lots of analysts and the like predicted that it would sell fewer than 2 million at launch, and Reggie says they actually released 2.7 million and they all sold out, so they actually did more than was expected, and it's still selling like hotcakes. So there comes a point when you've got to stop thinking, is this maybe a conspiracy, and start thinking, you know, something, maybe they're just selling more than they can make, which is kind of understandable. And it doesn't help. It does help for Switch owners that you've now got people like Shinji Mikami and others saying, yeah, okay, I'd like to make a Switch version of this, because the Switch is clearly hot property now. Everyone can see the benefit of playing console quality games on the move in a handheld. You've seen that recently with Doom coming to the Switch, and Wolfenstein 2 coming to the Switch later on. You were starting to get the first rumblings of, it was the problem that the Wii U had at first, and the Wii eventually had third party support. Obviously, then you had third parties saying, we don't really want to make games for this, what's the point? There's nothing in it for us. Whereas at the moment, certainly at least with Switch, there certainly is something in it for developers, and they're all jumping on this bandwagon, and that can only be a good thing for Switch gamers. So yeah, Evil Within 2, Mikami would like to. That's not a confirmation that it's coming to the Switch, but certainly nice to see interest in it. You had that recently as well. The Final Fantasy developers saying they'd like to bring Final Fantasy to Switch as well. And obviously Doom and Wolfenstein. So it's a good time. It's a good time to be a Switch owner, because it looks like the third party support is actually here this time, for the first time since maybe the GameCube era to an extent. So that's good. And yeah, finally with Nintendo again, the stock price leapt up more than 7%. Here's an interesting one that a lot of people maybe didn't notice or didn't consider. Now, Nintendo had a Nintendo Direct a week or two ago, and one of the games in it, which nine out of 10 of you, maybe more than that, listening, have probably already forgotten, Arena of Valor was announced during Nintendo Direct. And it's understandable that you would look at it and that most people would just totally ignore that, because it looked like just a standard kind of free-to-play style MOBA type thing, multiplayer online battle arena game. And that's because that's what it is. It's just a MOBA thing. But the thing is, that game, which is also kind of known as King of Glory in places, and but also known as Arena of Valor, that game is published by Tencent Games, who are a Chinese developer, a Chinese studio, sorry. And it is fucking enormous. You might not be familiar with it, but if you're familiar with it, you'll know it's actually an enormous game. It's actually the world's most profitable game and popular free download app because of its success in China mainly. And for years, game console manufacturers have been trying to break China. For the longest time, China was a no-go zone because the gaming was essentially banned in China. So you had people in China had to buy systems through the grey market, as they called it, So not quite the black market, but just kind of under the counter buying game systems, and you had to import the games and all that. But then relatively recently, the law was changed slightly so that game consoles could be started being sold in China. So yeah, the news that Arena of Valor is coming to the Switch may not have kind of registered on your earthquake meter when it was first announced, but in China, that's fucking enormous news. That's the equivalent of fucking Call of Duty coming to the Switch. And so, as a result, Nintendo's stock price rose by more than 7% following that announcement. And it's a big deal for... It may not be a big deal for you. It's certainly not a big deal for me, but it's another big deal for Nintendo because that could be the game that helps them break China. And that's a fucking enormous market for them to gain access to. Now, they've had access to it for a while, but breaking it has been a struggle because you're gonna... It's a new market essentially, and it takes time to build this. But Arena of Valor being on Switch, but is a fucking massive feather in the Switch's cap, and it's going to be interesting to see how the Switch does in China going forward. So yeah, that's good times. It's good times for Nintendo. They've always had ups and downs, and this is an up just now. So that's good to see. Even if you're more of an Xbox or a PlayStation gamer, you should always want to see every manufacturer doing well, because success breeds competition breeds innovation. You look at the WWE, this is a wrestling analogy. When they bought WCW, the quality plummeted because there was no competition anymore. You need competition to breed good ideas. Fucking motorbike or something outside, it's really annoying me. It's quite loud. So yeah, there we go. That's just some of the news recently. I don't want to turn this into a newscast, but there you go. I just thought I'd bring up a couple of things that I noticed recently. Wee bit of news about the site just now, tiredoldhack.com, if you're not familiar with it. A few articles on there that might be of interest. I recently wrote about the complete history of Nintendo's arcade games. As part of that Nintendo Direct, I was discussing Nintendo announced that it was bringing a bunch of arcade classics, the Arcade Archives series, which Hamster Corporation have already been doing. They're now going to be doing Nintendo games, starting with Mario Brothers on the 29th, so this Thursday actually. So I did an article on the complete history of Nintendo arcade games, so going all the way back to the late 70s, where they did the first arcade games, all the way up to Versus Golf, which was at Versus Dr. Mario, which was 94 or something like that. So yeah, the kind of 40 odd arcade games they did in that time. There's a big article on all those. It's quite a long article, but it should be quite interesting reading, because a lot of those games, certainly the later ones, maybe not the early ones, but certainly the Versus series ones and stuff like that will certainly looks like they'll be coming to the Switch soon, starting with Mario Brothers, but since then confirmed has been the likes of Wrecking Crew, which I never expected we'd see. That's going to be really exciting. Not so much for people... Wrecking Crew is not a great game, but for people like me who want to play every Nintendo game, Versus Wrecking Crew is this kind of... not quite a holy grail, but an obscenely rare game that, to the best of my knowledge, wasn't released in the West. It was only released in Japan, and no one ever made a ROM dump of it, so you've never been able to play it on an emulator or anything like that. So it sounds like that's coming, so that's a pretty massive deal for Nintendo kind of historians who want to mess around with it and see the difference between the arcade version and the home version, even though I think it's negligible. So yeah, there we go. So yeah, check that on the site, Complete History of Nintendo Arcade Games. It should still be in the front page. Also on the site, I did a review of Pokken Tournament DX, which is out this week. DX obviously standing for Deluxe as opposed to D Generation X. And yeah, it's Pokken Tournament. It's one of those reviews which was a hard one to write, because it's essentially 95% of it is the same as the Wii U version, except it looks a tiny wee bit better, runs a wee bit better. Not better as in remastered or anything, it's just a wee bit sharper. The resolution's a bit sharper. It's more stable. And yeah, they've added like 5 new characters, a couple of new support characters. Other than that, it's essentially the same game, which is totally fine. It's a good game, it's a fun game, especially on the Switch, playing with 2 players, the 2 Joy-Con and tabletop mode. It's good fun. So get stuck into that. Pokken Tournament DX. The review's on the site, and if it sounds intriguing, you can give the game a wee buy and see what you think about that. Finally, on the site, I've started my VHS preservation project. This is something I've been kind of hinting at for a number of weeks now, maybe months, because it's taken a while to get set up. I've got a big collection of kind of British VHS tapes from back in the late 80s, early 90s of video game stuff, promo tapes and game magazine, video magazines and all this kind of stuff. And I'm in the process of preserving those, so but digitally capturing them through a VHS player, through an upscaler through a capture device to get the kind of high quality full frame rate videos. So yeah, I'm working my way through those. I've already done the Super Mario All-Stars video hosted by Craig Charles of Red Dwarf and Robot Wars fame, and I've just done the Donkey Kong Country one, and there'll be a couple more coming up in the coming weeks. But yeah, eventually all 17, 18 videos that I own will be done, and then I'll be kind of shouting out for more if people want to donate videos or loan me some videos so that I can capture those as well. I want to do that. It's essentially want to get to the point where as many British VHS tapes as possible are being preserved, because a lot of people on YouTube and are doing it with American tapes, just because America's bigger and there's more chance that people are interested in doing that in America. But in the UK, it's not a lot of people doing the same, certainly not to the quality that I'm hoping to try and capture them. So it's an important thing, I think, the history of games and the preservation of the history of games. So it's something I want to do as much as possible. So if there are any videos once I'm finished that any of you have old video game VHS tapes, I'm going to be doing a shout out for them, so please do let me know, because we need to get as many of these done as possible before over time tape degrades in quality and eventually kind of rots and tapes snap and stuff like that. We want to get to the point where we can get as many of these preserved as possible so that they don't disappear over and lost to time, essentially. So yeah, that's that. Finally, and this is the bit we have a drink now of Iron Brew Extra, highly recommended. Nectar of the Gods. Yeah, this is the final bit I want to discuss today. The review situation again. Now, like I said, last podcast a couple of weeks ago, I reviewed Metroid Samus Returns for Nintendo Life, and I went on a wee bit of a rant because a lot of people were questioning my 10 out of 10 score for it, questioning my basically my ability to score games despite me having done this for 11.5 years now. A lot of people getting really arsey about it, and essentially the rant boiled down to people are too strung up on review scores without actually reading the text of the reviews. I could write a 5,000 word review for a game if I wanted to. Not that I would, because that'd be madness. And if it had a score at the end, people would just, the comment section would just be people arguing about the score, almost as if those 5,000 words never happened. And that was the case with the Metroid review. A lot of people were just totally fucking ignoring the words I'd written and were just arguing about the 10. Should it be a 9? Should it be an 8? Am I biased? Am I selling my soul to Nintendo? Did Nintendo pay me to give it a good score, etc., etc.? A load of old shite. And yeah, so the podcast essentially ended with me saying, like, read the words. don't worry about the score. The score's a thing that's there, but stop the conspiracy theory shit and just kind of the words are all there in the review. That's my opinion. People asking me to clarify things, it's all there. That's my statement on it. So yeah, a week later, Nintendo Life get in touch again. Do you want to review NBA 2K18 on Switch? I'm like, yes, I would love to, because I'm a big NBA 2K fan. I've played the games for a number of years. I've got an article on, one of my early articles on Tidal Hack was moaning at 2K turning off the servers for one of their older games because I was still catching up with them. My Jake McPake character was about to essentially be killed because of my career mode was linked to online for some bizarre reason. So yeah, I thought, yeah, I know my NBA series, so yeah, I'm more than happy to review that. And yeah, so I wrote the review, and again, it was another one of these situations where I hadn't seen any other reviews by the time I'd written mine, because that's not what you do. And in this particular situation, despite me being really excited for the game, the Switch version during my review process was buggy as fuck, full of glitches, to the point that cutscenes were playing at half the speed, so they were basically ruined. Because the dialogue would play at normal speed, but the cutscenes would run at half speed or less than half speed. So you'd be sitting there listening to the dialogue and not matching the thing at all. The dialogue going way ahead of what you're seeing. And then when the dialogue finished, you'd just sit there and with an unskippable cutscene watching the slow motion mute cutscene playing out until it caught up with where the dialogue was. So what was supposed to be like a minute long cutscene could last up to like 3 minutes at times, and it's really fucking infuriating. So that was broken in the career mode. The sound was garbled and broken at times. It was really like corrupt sound. Loads of kind of glitches, shadows flickering and stuff like that, which is kind of minor but it's still annoying. And then to top it all off, it was deleting when you tried to play it offline. It was deleting saying your save file was corrupt and stuff like that, and threatening to delete it and everything, which is fucking amateur, like the schoolboy level stuff. It's just fucking broken essentially at that point. So the review was a good 1,700-1,800 words, a lengthy review. And yeah, the conclusion essentially was, look, we'd love to say this game is great because when everything works together, is great. It's a brilliant game. It's like an 8 out of 10 essentially. I didn't say that. I ended up saying that in the comments later, but it would be an 8 out of 10 had it all been working totally fine. But before the review went up, I emailed one of the editors at Nintendo Life and said, look, here's the deal. I really like this game, but it's fucking broken. So I'm torn. I don't know whether to give it an 8 in the knowledge that it will, in the hope that it will be patched eventually, because that's just the world we live in today, and games are patched. So chances are it's going to get patched essentially, especially if it's such a bad bug. And I'd seen, I'd heard of other people experiencing it as well, other reviewers and stuff. On the other hand, as it was in its current state, it broken so much, it was probably a 4 or a 5 out of 10 instead. And I was also wary of giving it that, because chances were at the time it could have received a patch the following day, which it did on Xbox One and PS4, it turns out. And at which point that review score then becomes fucking stupid, because you're giving a game a 5 out of 10 for being broken, even though at that point, a day after release, it isn't broken anymore. And to a lot of people, that's the case of, well, that's fine, just change the score. But there's a load of other things to consider when you do that. And again, I tried to explain this in the comments once the review had been posted, but a lot of people misinterpreted what I was trying to say. One of the points I was making is that Metacritic, for example, have a policy of not changing reviews when a website changes a review, in case anything's tried to be covered up or anything like that. They note a score down as what it was originally given. So if the game had come out broken, I'd given it a 4. The next day it's patched and we change it to an 8. On Metacritic, that will forever be a 4, or 40%. Which someone interpreted as, you only care about Metacritic, you're selling your soul to Metacritic. Metacritic is controlling. So take my jumper off, I'm roasting. Getting worked up. Basically saying, you're putting too much emphasis on Metacritic, it's controlling the way you do your job, which is bullshit. It was just a point that I was making. That's not the reason we didn't do it. One of the other reasons is that when a website gives a game a score, that score then goes all over the internet. It's on NeoGAF threads, it's on Reddit forums, it's on just Twitter, all over the place. It goes everywhere. Site aggregation things. You get a website. Every now and then when a big game comes out, websites do a review roundup and show you all, so and so gave it 8, so and so gave it this, so and so gave it that, listing all the things. All that would, if the next day we changed the score, all that would still be there. So websites would still have it reported as a 4. Reddit would still be discussing it as if it was a 4. NeoGAF would still have it as a 4. Nobody's going to go back and edit their posts, because the nature of the internet means that these things move on. So it becomes, not just on the site, on the site it may have become an 8, but everywhere else on the internet where the score could also be found, it would still be a 4 or a 5. So that's another one of the reasons I'm of the belief, which Nintendo Life guys shared with me, that once you give a game a score, ideally you want to give a game a score when you're 100% certain that's the final score, that it's not going to be changed, all things going well. So the decision we made amongst ourselves was, That was the couch, by the way, in case you heard this. It's the couch. I'm on a leather couch. I'm not breaking wind, as they say. We just discussed it with Nintendo Life and guys, and the decision was basically made that we were going to give it a no score, and give them a week or so to see if the patch would be released. 2K, to see if 2K released a patch, because it was clear that it was broken, and stuff like that. But 99 times out of 100, games that are broken to that extent are fixed pretty soon after release, because it's suicide to bring out a game that's that broken, because it becomes poison. But everyone on the internet knows it's broken and nobody buys it. So 99 times out of 100, the game, like with big errors like that, gets patched fairly quickly. So the decision was made to write the review in the kind of maybe naive hope that people would actually read the words, and use the words to draw the conclusion on whether they want to buy the game or not. And then the score would come later once we'd given enough time to see if a patch was coming. If after a week or so it became clear that a patch wasn't coming, then we'd rethink it and go, right, okay, is it time to finally say enough's enough, here's a final score. The benefit of the doubt is kind of worn out. So it went up, no score, but a good 1800 words on the game, saying this bit's good, this is good, here's all the different modes, here's what you can do in it, but here's the broken bits, this is broken, that's broken, this is broken. And then at the end saying we can't in all kind of confidence, we can't recommend this game to you in its current state. And I think at the end it said something like, hold fire just now until we see if it gets patched. Basically, don't spend your money on it yet, until we see what's happening. And fingers crossed that next month, when WWE 2K18 comes out, also by 2K, that it won't have a similarly horrible launch or something like that. I said. Suddenly the comments suddenly become a big fucking war as to why did we not give it a score? Why are we fucking why did we for some other game, why did we give it a low score because it was broken even though it was later patched, and why did we not do it for this and that? Again, going back to what I've said over and over again, I'm not Nintendo Life, I'm Chris Scullion. Review the games, that's my policy. I discussed it with them. I take my reviews on a case by case basis. With the greatest respect to the other writers, I could not give a quarter of a fuck what other people do when they score games. When I'm commissioned to review a game, I'm commissioned to give it the score that I think it deserves, and so it's my decision, it's my review, it's my score. Every now and then we can have a wee argument with the editor about it if they don't think it reads like an 8 or something like that. It's just that's what happens. It's annoying, but over time that happens less, because it's just something you got to feel your way through, and eventually, as you get more experience, you learn to write a review that reads like this. You basically learn to assign a number that reads like the text does, and because the number's arbitrary, to be totally honest, the number's just there. There's no profession. We don't get into, nobody gets into games journalism so they can attribute numbers to games. We get into it because we want to write about games, we want to tell people about games and discuss games and critique games and look at the world of gaming and stuff like that. We don't get into this business to say 7, this one 83, B+. That's just a bit we have to do, just for the sake of having people fucking argue about it. Because a lot of people, sad as it is, don't have the patience to read fucking reviews, which is the main reason I don't put scores on Tired Old Hack. It's like, granted, fewer people will read my reviews, but I don't give a fuck, because the people who do read it will pay attention to it and hopefully enjoy it and get something out of it, rather than I could probably double my audience if I put scores in the game, but those extra people would just be the kind of people that would go to the site, scroll right down, see what the number was, and then go in the comments and say, what, 8? It should be a 7, you c***. So I don't often use that word, but that's how over the top some people take it. So yeah, that's where we are. It's so yeah, the comments got a bit ridiculous, and yeah, it got to the point where people were not just insinuating, but flat out basically suggesting that we, and by as a result I, were helping 2K out by not posting the score, that we had done a deal with 2K and we were best pals with 2K, and that we decided that, oh, we'll do you a favour, 2K, we'll give you time to sort this out, and so spare you the embarrassment of a bad review score, etc, etc. And that was annoying in itself, and I'd put a few replies up saying, no, listen, that's shite, so don't start this nonsense. Just fucking the review's a review, and what I just explained to you earlier about how the review was written, how I emailed them about the score and said, look, what are we going to do here, because I think it's an 8 but it's broken as it's a 4 or a 5, what will we do? And we decided as a team, me as a freelancer and them as the editorial staff, to sit on the score until we kind of gave them a kind of a period to see if the patch was forthcoming. So it was nothing to do with being pally with 2K. I've got no reason to be pally with 2K. I've been doing this for too long to worry about forming friendships or anything like that. I get on with some PRs, and if you're doing your job properly, you can get along with PRs and still give kind of harsh criticism to games if they deserve it. The example I always give is back in the day when I was at Official Nintendo magazine. I went to New York with Sega on a press trip, big kind of fancy press trip to New York to visit Marvel's headquarters and all this kind of stuff, and it was for the Iron Man game, which on Wii ended up being fucking abysmal. And then a couple of months later the game came out for review, and I gave it like, I can't remember the exact score, but something like 14% or something. It was like one of the lowest scores I've ever given in. And got in touch with the PR who'd taken me to New York and said, mate, here's a score. And he was like, yeah, fine, don't give a fuck. And it's refreshing. And granted, that's not always the case. A lot of times you'll get phone calls from PRs or emails from PRs with the kind of passive aggressive, oh, we're curious to know why you think this. And it's like, well, it's written in the review. There's fucking 2,000 words there. That's why I think it. But eventually they realise they're on a kind of hiding to nothing, and they realise that they're not going to change. If you're a professional, you're not going to change your mind. You got to see it from a PR's point of view. It's their job to get the game good publicity. That's the nature of the beast. But as a games critic or journalist, or what you want to call it, is our job is to give an honest review of it. And there's an obvious clash there. There's an obvious like resistance pushing against each other, whereas where I'm wanting to say it's a bad game, it's in their best interest for it to get a good write-up, where it's in my best interest for it to get a bad write-up because I think it's a bad game. So there's always that clash, but if you're professional about it and they're professional about it, you realise you've got to be honest about it, and they realise that you've got to, they're not going to be able to change your mind because you are honest about it, and that's it. That's life. That's how it goes. So any claims that I was fucking pally with 2K are just bullshit, and it got more and more ridiculous. And it didn't help that there was then a story about the Sixth Axis website. The guys at the Sixth Axis, to be fair, I don't know them. I don't know many or any of them. But the alleged story, and I say alleged because I've been in this game long enough to know that people misinterpret things and sex up stories to make them sound more outlandish than they are. But the alleged story is that the Sixth Axis gave the game 3 out of 10 as a kind of partly as a protest to the microtransactions in it and some of the glitches and stuff like that. And the alleged story is that 2K got in touch with them and said, fuck's going on here, what's this all about? And that the score was temporarily pulled from the site. And I believe it was then put back up later on, but it was the fact that it was allegedly pulled was enough to get people going, wait a fucking minute here, 2K's pressuring sites into removing bad reviews of NBA 2K18. As soon as I saw that story, I was like, oh, for fuck's sake, because I know what's coming next, because I know you're then going to get comments, and sure enough, that was what happened on my Nintendo Life review, linking to that story saying, oh, well, look what happened to the Sixth Axis, that's clearly what's going on here as well. And it's like, fuck off. With the greatest of respect, fuck off. The one guy in particular started blatantly flat out saying, "Oh, you're not giving it a score, even though it's clearly bugged, even though there's clearly microtransactions in it." I find that highly suspicious at best. Go and fucking chase yourself. I don't care what you think it is at best. At best, how can it be suspicious at best? At best, the situation is that I gave it a fucking review based on what I played, which is exactly what happened. That's at best. Suspicious at best gives me no fucking credit whatsoever, and leaves absolutely no possibility that I was just doing my fucking job honestly, which really winds me up. So yeah, it got to the point where it annoys me, and it's something I'd like to ask, but I would like to think the majority of people listening to this are decent people, because most people who listen to this podcast are followers on my Twitter and stuff like that, and I'd like to think by and large most of my Twitter followers are a nice bunch. They're not like a bunch of fannies who troll websites and just moan about review scores and stuff like that all the time. So I'd like to think I'm preaching to the converted for the most part, but see if you see a review score that you don't like, fine. Like that's life. You don't like it, that's fine. Don't start fucking looking conspiracy theories and getting all Da Vinci Code and Illuminati and claiming that fucking Elvis came back from space and told me to hold fire on a fucking NBA score. It's never as suspicious as you think it is, and anytime it is, it gets found out. On the very few occasions where these things happen, there's always whistleblowers to come out and say, "Wait a fucking minute here." Believe it or not, 99% of us are trying to do an honest job, and if we have a problem with the way something's going, we're probably going to call it out. We're more likely to call it out. There will always be bad eggs in every industry. The games journalism is not unique in that front, but it's also not unique in that one bad egg doesn't mean the entire fucking batch is rotten. It just means there's one bad egg. I'm sick of people pointing to one-off obscure things that happened with small websites and going, "Oh look," not that I'm saying the Six Axis is a small website. I'm talking about in the past, people would look at something that happened to some site somewhere and go, "Look." The perfect example is fucking Brash Games with that fucking cock that was running that site, and they've changed it to another site recently. The number of people who pointed out and says, "Games journalism these days, fuck off. That's not games journalism. That's a fucking dick using young kind of up and coming writers and basically rinsing the work off them and paying them fuck all for it. That's an arsehole, like basically using enthusiastic people's words to make money off them. That's not games journalism. That's a wanker. That's not indicative of the whole industry. So yeah, that's. Sorry, I'm going on a massive rant here. But that is what it is. So yeah, long story short, they then get arseholes saying, "Oh, you still haven't given it a score. Why are you not giving it a score?" And that's to me, that's the irony here, and this is the hypocritical bit of it, and the bit that is annoying is that the people, the commenters under that review, basically saying, "I can't believe you haven't given it a score yet. It's your duty to give it a score." Blah 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 blah. They're putting more pressure on me and on the website than 2K were, which was not at all. 2K at no point said pull this score or don't give it a low score until we patch it or anything like that. 2K never got in touch with me at all. The only people putting pressure on me about the game score were the commenters, while at the same time ironically suggesting that it wasn't given a score because 2K were putting pressure on me, which blows my mind. Is that someone coming saying, "Oh, I can't believe you're being pressured into giving that game a high score. Anyway, give it a low score." Fuck off. You're just as bad. In fact, you're worse because you're actually doing it, and there's actually evidence in the comments thread of you doing it. So yeah, the point is, 2K did not pressure anyone, me or anyone else at Nintendo Life, to give that game a high score, but certain commenters did are attempting to pressure me into giving the game a low score, which I'm not going to fucking do. We've got our plan, which we'd laid out at the start, to however many days or whatever length of time we're going to give it in before we decide, right, enough's enough, here's the score, it's broken. And and that's something we're still discussing, something that's still ongoing. But this kind of shit doesn't help, because if we finally decide, right, enough's enough, it's a 4 or a 5, it's going to look like now that we're under pressure from the commenters and we've basically bowed to the commenters. Whereas if it finally gets patched and we give it an 8, the commenters are going to allege that we bowed to pressure from 2K. So I'm damned if I do and damned if I don't. If we give it a high score, the insinuation will be that 2K influenced it, and if we give it a low score, the insinuation will be that the commenters influenced it, and either way it's going to look like I'm not capable of forming an opinion myself and that I'm being forced into it either way, which is just bullshit. It's a shit situation to put someone in. So at the end of the day, I couldn't give a fuck. When the score goes up, it'll go up, and that's it. Read the fucking 1800 words that are there, because that does, in my opinion, I'd like to think I'm an okay writer, and the words that are there I would hope do a decent job. The only thing I concede I could have done better is maybe mention the microtransactions a bit more. For some reason, this year NBA 2K18 has suddenly been hit with a shitstorm for its microtransactions, even though as someone who's played the game for a long time, it's had microtransactions since fucking 2K maybe 15, 2K14. It's always had the thing in career mode where you get this virtual currency. It's called VC, virtual currency, where you can either earn this currency by playing the game, or you can buy it with real money, and it's obscenely expensive. But that's been the case for like 4 years now. I don't understand why suddenly it's become such a big deal now. It's just for whatever reason the press have jumped on it this time, and suddenly it's grown arms and legs, and now people who were never involved in the NBA in the past, readers, have now suddenly decided this is the new thing they want blood for. And to be honest, I fucking hate microtransactions when they're done like that. It's a horribly done way of doing it. But I can see that I didn't mention it much in the review, but I think it's just because, and I fully hold my hands up to it, I've experienced it in this game for 4 years now, so it's not new to me. When I was writing the review, I was looking for what was new in the game, and to me that isn't new. And I concede that because it was a review of the Switch version, a lot of Nintendo fans won't have played an NBA 2K game, so to them it would be new, so fair enough, I could have mentioned that. But people were insinuating that I was doing it to protect, not mentioning it to protect 2K and all this shit. Just fuck off. That's just stupid. And I don't appreciate it. It's really rude and disrespectful, and just downright insulting that I've been doing this for 11.5 years, and people who have never heard of me and I've never heard of them think they can suddenly decide they've nailed my character and they've nailed my ability to do my job. It's really infuriating. So yeah, I'm not going to take that. So there we go. I've in recent times I've decided to stay away from a lot of Twitter arguments. I used to argue a lot with people on Twitter, and I've kind of calmed that down a bit. I don't do that so much anymore. But if anyone ever questions my integrity or anything like that, I'm going to fucking give them both barrels, because I'm not taking that. That's the worst thing you can do to someone whose job is to review games, is question their integrity and their honesty when doing that. So fuck that, I'm not having it. So yeah, there we go. Sorry, that was a massive, extremely negative rant, but I promise next time it won't be so negative. I hope you enjoyed. I don't know if enjoyed is a word, but I hope you tolerated my views. And yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this podcast as it was. I promise the next one will be cheerier again. Get a guest back on, but I thought for this one, I've been so wound up the last couple of weeks. When Tyrell Hack got added to Metacritic, I was like, oh brilliant, cool, I'm on Metacritic, and they put me in the no score section because I don't give scores for games. And for a while, for a couple of weeks, I was thinking, maybe I should start adding a scoring system to the site, because as good as it is to be on Metacritic, putting scores in kind of puts me in amongst the mix, and it makes it more interesting. And ultimately, in a purely shameless way, you get more traffic if your reviews have scores there, and if they don't, because most people just click on. A lot of people click on the high score, the low score. I would never try and work it that way, but the law of averages suggests that maybe once in every so many reviews, one will be quite near the top or quite near the bottom, just depending on whether I like it or not. And I'd invariably get more traffic that way, because most people click on the Metacritic reviews that have got scores rather than the unscored ones. So for a while I was kind of toying with the idea of, yeah, maybe I will add a scoring system to the site. But these two Nintendo Life reviews, the Metroid one first, and this NBA one, have 100% solidified it for me. I will never put scores in my reviews on the site because it's just not worth the hassle. Life's too short. I've got a 9-to-5 job. I've got a wife I love that I watch the films with every night. And at the same time, I'm juggling a website and a YouTube channel and a podcast. And yeah, I don't have time to argue with dicks who don't know who I am and come over from Metacritic and decide they want to pick a fight and call me all the arseholes under the sun. Don't have time for it. So yeah, I will happily continue having lower traffic, but quality traffic over quantity of people who will actually read my words and hopefully get something out of them and hopefully appreciate them and hopefully be entertained, because the point of the site is to make you laugh, and I realise I've probably not made you laugh a lot during this podcast because it's just been a big ranty moan, and I don't usually, it's pretty uncharacteristic for me because I don't like to moan a lot. I'll sometimes give it a bit of effing and jeffing on Twitter, I get that, and I get a wee bit moany on Twitter sometimes, but by and large, when I'm covering games, I'm quite positive, and I don't like being negative like I am just now, but this is really hitting breaking point now, and it's going to get worse before it gets better. It seems to be the internet at the moment is just a situation where everyone's looking for a reason to be insulted or looking for a conspiracy to expose left, right and centre, and it's just like, just fucking sit back and relax. We're talking about video games here, we're not bringing down Somalian government or anything like that. It's just, I'm asked to play a basketball game and say if I thought it was any good. That's it. That's what it comes down to. Fucking calm yourselves. Not you, because I'm sure you're listening, you're a lovely person, but other dicks need to chill out. Otherwise it's going to get worse before it gets better. Anyway, I've saved my bit. Sorry guys, thanks for listening. I do appreciate all the support, especially those who are on my Patreon account who fork out on a monthly basis to keep me doing this. It's really, really appreciated. It's and also those who don't and who just always retweet my stuff on Twitter or post it on Reddit. Anytime anyone posts one of my articles on Reddit, the traffic just fucking the boost is enormous. I'll really appreciate anyone who ever does that. And the same deal when my videos are on YouTube. Anyone who covers them, tweets them, retweets them, puts them on sites or forums or whatever, it's always really appreciated. Although I've been doing this for a long time, you can always, I appreciate that for the vast majority of my career I was doing a niche thing, writing for a single format British publication. So there's a lot of people who still haven't heard of me outside the UK, and even inside the UK who are mostly Xbox or PlayStation fans. I'm still an unknown quantity to a lot of people, so I'm still building. I don't want to say the brand because that's a fucking shitey thing, but over time I want Tired Old Hack to become a bigger name and be a site that people have heard of and people go, oh yeah, Tired Old Hack, that's the guy who did the fucking what will soon be the massive history feature on Street Fighter. That's the guy who's doing the VHS tapes. That's the guy who's doing this and that and other things I've got in the pipeline. And that's the plan. And it's a long plan. It's not the sort of thing where I'm not going to come out and suddenly say a outrageous right wing thing and be a woman hater and be racist and get more Patreon followers that way because I've seen that happening a lot. And that's not me, obviously. I'm just going to do what I'm doing, and hopefully the quality will, what I hope is quality writing that will kind of win through in the end. And it'll be a long process, but the people who follow me and follow the site and the people who attach themselves to the site will stay attached to the site for the long term, because hopefully they like what's there and see that it's unique. So yeah, thanks guys. Thanks for listening. Please do subscribe to this on iTunes if you aren't already. If you're watching it on YouTube, please do subscribe to my YouTube channel. Pass this podcast around if you want. If you think the points I've made are interesting and are kind of worth hearing for other people, if you think other people want to hear it, please do pass it about. Otherwise, I will catch you on the flip flop. And yeah, good times. Let's be positive. Mario Odyssey's coming out soon. That's going to be fucking amazing. Cheers, guys. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.